Hi everyone, it's Roger here from What's on Disney Plus, and welcome to this week's live Q&A. So big hello and welcome to everyone joining either live or afterwards. So big hello also goes to our Patreon and YouTube channel members. You guys rock, you guys support the channel, you guys support the website, and it does really mean a lot, which is why I do this show each and every week for you guys. So you've been able to submit your questions in advance during through Patreon and also on YouTube. You can also use the super chat function as well to send in your support, all of which makes a massive difference to running everything. So I just want to say a huge thank you. Got a few people already live in the live chat from the YouTube channel members. That's a benefit that you get. Billy, we've got Miles, we've got Keenan, we've got Tim, we've got Bubba Trolling, Dana, and so Suna. So hello to all of you. So each and every week, as I said, we've got the questions coming in. So what I will tend to do is I will jump in between the pre-done questions that have already been sent in and the live chat, jump around a little bit. If there are any super chats or anything come in, they will go to the top of the queue and I'll deal with them first. Okay, just big thank you. So lots of questions today, a little bit more variety this week. Some weeks we have questions that are a little bit more focused on like a major story. This week is a little bit more random, which is great. I do actually quite like that sometimes where it's not, and that's always a cool thing. But nevertheless, let's jump into the first question. I always like to kind of do the ones at the beginning, where Ricardo asked, with the mysterious Benedict Society returning to the service, do you think other former Disney Plus shows should be added to bigger streaming services like Netflix or HBO Max? So in case you're unaware, the mysterious Benedict Society is being added on to, I believe it's the Wonder Project. It's a new streaming service launching on Amazon next month. And it's a faith-based, family-focused streaming service, which definitely kind of, I think things like Mysterious Benedict Society kick in quite nicely for. So that's quite cool. This isn't the only one. A couple of other people have pointed out things like The Princess and A Small Light have been made available on other platforms. Now, all of this stems from many, many years ago. Disney went through a bit of a cull. They removed over 100, maybe 150 different originals from Disney Plus and did so to try and save about $2 billion from the streaming division to kind of make it profitable, which was important. Wall Street was breathing down its neck. It needed to write off a lot of debt to get into profitability, which it now is, which is good. So we saw a load of titles removed. Now, at the time, there was a lot of speculation that due to the licensing agreement within Disney, because essentially what happens is Disney Plus would have licensed those titles from the studio making it. It's all kind of internal tax, each division and how it all works. So they would have been removed and written off as an asset. But Disney Studios probably still then technically owns the film, but they can't license it back to Disney Plus. The good news is they have been finding a few little workarounds, and many of the films were kind of within a few months were made available to purchase and to rent, and now they've started popping up onto other streaming services. Whereas the series have been a little bit less inclined to pop up on other services. The movies seem a bit easier bite for them. They also sold off some shows like the Spiderwick Chronicles. They ended up selling that to, I think it was Roku. And also the Nautilus TV show got sold off to a number of different parties around the world. So they were really kind of just clearing out. And in some ways, since then, we don't see as many originals being released. And also the good news is most of the new originals that do get cancelled don't necessarily get removed within, because that was really bad at the time. But also just generally, the stuff that's coming out now seems a little bit more focused. They're not just churning out stuff just to fill the platform up. And yeah, now, arguably, I think one of the big things with a lot of the titles that got removed was they didn't perform as well as they should have. They underperformed, they cost a lot of money, and therefore that's why they got removed. Fundamentally, if people were kind of not necessarily, if people were watching them more, they wouldn't have got removed. So I think that's the kind of thing. So in regards to being available on other streaming services, I don't think someone like Netflix or HBO might be interested in somebody else's cast me downs and cancelled. I think shows are a little bit different because a show that's been cancelled is generally a little bit less. There's less interest in it. A film is much easier for them to sell to other people. You think of like The Princess or Stargirl or Crater. that's a movie all tied up in one little bundle. It's a much easier thing just to put on a streaming service or a platform, and it works. It's very much harder when you've got a TV series like Willow, which ended after the first season, but it teased seasons 2 and 3. So I think that's where there's a little bit of a difficulty with, and why there's a lot more stigma around a cancelled show than something that's not. I mean, I think of a show like, for example, like FX Pistol, which I think was bad that got removed. That was a show which does stand up on its own because its own little limited thing. I also think there's a problem with some of the Disney shows where they don't necessarily want the Disney or the FX brand or whatever it is being associated with other streaming platforms. Whereas the movies, people are a lot more forgiving with that. You know, if there's a Disney movie on Roku, no one really bats an eyelid, but you start putting TV shows on there, it might be a bit different. So I think there is a fundamental difference between movies and TV series. I think a lot of the movies are probably going to end up returning to Disney Plus once whatever the deal is. Maybe it's 7 years, 10 years, who knows how long it is. I do think the movies will return. I think the series, much less likely. And especially anything that is with actors where they have to pay them, I think that they're less likely, because that's the other thing as well, as residuals and all of this lot kicks in. So, and also the Mysterious Benedict side, it was just a really good show, and I think it fits in. But also finding a streaming service which will actually pay for it. And I think you're generally seeing a lot of the secondary, or not even secondary, I would call like third, fourth, fifth tier streaming services are the ones that are like just desperately trying to scratch around and get anything that they can which is slightly good to make it, because they would, I mean, I remember like when was it Tubi launched here in the UK? I mean, the selection was pretty bad, but they could rely on a couple of good movies and just to kind of fill out the thing. And I think, in fairness, you know, it makes sense from Disney's point of view, license out some of the stuff which they can make a little bit of extra money back. But I think there are going to be certain titles that they're going to be less inclined to. So I asked everyone, what deleted Disney Plus original would you like to see return? Now, unfortunately, I do only have 4 slots in a poll, so I can't kind of go too much. You know, I can't go. But 51% of you said Willow. I think Willow was definitely the better of the series. I mean, I thought it was okay. It was good at the beginning, and it kind of dropped off in the middle. Mighty Ducks, 29%. Now, I enjoyed the first season. The second season was dreadful. Big Shot was probably my favorite out of the ones of the series that got removed. But yeah, so at the minute, I think that one's winning. Matt also says, do you think Disney could bring back other older titles to sell the other streaming services? I think so. I think Disney are very much in the idea now that licensing is fine. They've been doing licensing deals for decades, and I think they've realized there is still money to be made, and they might as well make some money off of these, you know, Star and, you know, what else is it? You got like Roku and Tubi, and I think less so from the big boys. I think it's more the fast services that seem to be the ones going for. But I definitely think they could be coming in. So I'm just going to try and pick out some questions just related to this rather than everything. According to Will on Blue Sky, Disney Plus re-added a number of pre-1980 films. I do like it since it shows more depth. I think there is a benefit for them going back and adding a lot of the 70s and the 80s and the 90s movies that they haven't got. I think that makes sense. I also think rotating movies in is actually pretty good. That's why I liked when, like this summer, we had the Transformers and the Mission Impossible films drop in. It kind of freshened up the homepage a little bit and gave everyone a little bit something to watch. I don't think that's a bad thing. You know, if Paramount and Warner Brothers and Sony, etc., are willing to do that, I think that's good. Bubba Trolling says, I've seen Willow, but I watched it so fast I don't remember it that much. Yeah, that's it. Babak also says, I'm curious how this works. If these shows were taken off as a tax write-off, how can they still sell it off? Well, my theory is, and this is where, like, say, for example, Walt Disney Studios, the company, created Crater, for example. So they can do, and they licensed it to the Disney Plus company. And when Disney Plus wrote it off, they wrote off the contract for how long that they had it for and how much they paid for it, etc. And the rights to do what they needed to reverted back to Walt Disney. That's how it looks like it's working. Because you've got to remember, Disney is not one, it is a big company, but everything is kind of separated into limited. Every movie and TV series that gets created is almost like its own separate limited company, and so it's all just tax avoidance. I think most of it. Billy says you should bring back Togo. I'm waiting for that to return. Why has the film not been released on digital platforms? It is strange because that, to me, was still one of the best ones that they did. I thought it was really good. Keenan says they would bring back the one and only Ivan. That was a good movie. I enjoyed that one. Cheaper by the Dozen. I wasn't so keen on the remake. I felt a bit forced. Stargo's film. I didn't mind the first one. The second one was I wasn't keen. Black Beauty. I don't even remember that one. I did remember watching it. Let's see what we've got here. Careless says it's hard to remember. I guess Willow could return. As you said before, the shows that left Disney Plus weren't very memorable, and I think this is where that's where I do kind of fall in line with. And I think like when all these got removed, it was quite a big story at the time, and a lot of people got upset over it because I think a lot of people look at like Disney Plus as like your personal library, and I think that was the point when everyone started realizing, oh, it's not. We've just got it's a portable mobile library driving around, and we've only got access to it. And they keep taking on and off books, etc. So I still am in the mindset that the movies and the shows that got removed were removed because they didn't perform very well and were failures. And I think there were some of the shows and movies had to be removed because they weren't very good. Some of the TV series were not very good. Let's just see if I'm just trying to keep on the Babak says I'm curious if the shows, how can they still be a sell-off? Again, I think that's how it worked with that. There we go. Matsy, it also seems like there are different ways of writing a tax off. Warner Brothers just did it the most extreme version. They did it. I mean, I think there's a difference between writing off something like Batgirl, which they hadn't released. Therefore, that's slightly different to writing off something on a streaming service. I think that's how it works a little bit differently. So there is that part of it. Warner Brothers did go really extreme, but they were so much in debt. And at the end of the day, we don't know what that Batgirl was like. Maybe it was just really bad, and they were like, this is just really bad. Ricardo says, Black Beauty is one of those girls with a horse. Yeah, that's, to be honest, that's the thing is with Black Beauty is I remember watching the TV series when I was a kid. But yeah, the movie, I think I vaguely remember it. It was all right. Actually, it's being shown on TV. It's being shown on Telemundo. Well, there we go. A proof that they are. But I don't think that was actually a Disney-owned movie. I think they licensed it. It was a bit like Clouds. They kind of licensed that one. They basically went out and brought a load of movies and TV series and just slapped the Disney Plus logo on it. Keenan says nominees for the Country Music Awards will be announced tomorrow, which is almost the CMA season, with the CMA season and Country Christmas in November. Should they be live or simulcast on Disney Plus and ABC? I think it would make sense if they got the rights to do it. Yeah, I mean, I wish they do it worldwide rather than just focus. I know they say like country music obviously is very like US focused. That's the core audience. But here in the UK, country music is big. We have the big country festival every March at the O2. Very popular. It's all being played now on our big BBC channel. I listen to country music all the time. I hope so. Keenan also says, according to the article from the RX TV, there is an uncertain future with satellite TV beyond 2029, particularly Sat and FreeSat. What are your perspective on this? So the thing is obviously keeping those satellites in the sky. They do, when they get sent up, they do have a lifespan, and it's not as if something goes wrong with them. They can just send somebody up and fix it. It's probably not quite so easy. You can't just send a repairman up. And so they've already extended the life of it a few times. But Sky, for example, here in UK, which obviously Sky is part of Comcast, and UK has always been much more focused on satellite than cable, because digging up the streets, while we do have it in the big cities, we're a little bit more rural. Satellite kind of was able to pick up a lot of the steam really much earlier. I mean, I had Sky TV way back in like early 90s. You know, we had it really early. And generally, the company is pulling away from traditional satellite. If you go on the website now, trying to find a traditional satellite installation is very difficult, they've laid off a lot of the staff because they're no longer sending the people out to install the satellite dishes. I mean, I had one installed by Sky when we moved in here, but once my contract ran out after 2 years, I decided to get rid of it. So I still got the Sky dish sat to the side of the house, but never use it. And to be honest, when I repaint the living room next, I'll be stripping out all the cabling and that I put in. But yeah, I think the simple truth is it's dying, and they're going to get to a point where it has to have a certain amount of customers to make it worthwhile. And I think it is getting to that point where there's not enough of them, and it's not enough to be. That's why you're seeing all the channels, like Disney have removed most of their channels. I think Nat Geo is like the only one left. They have been, and sort of Comcast has really been trying to push its own little box and the Sky, because Comcast, and I think it's very much the same in the US, they're still clinging to the idea of wanting you to be signed up to long contracts, still wanting you to have their devices. They still want to be the gatekeeper to television. And I think they haven't quite worked out that they aren't going to be, but it just seems like they're just clinging to this idea that they are going to try and get as many people coming in. I wouldn't be at all surprised if in 2029 Sky Satellite actually does shut down. I don't know about FreeSat, might have a little bit more life in it, but as long as you've got internet, you don't need it. I am someone that had satellite television in Sky for decades, and a couple of years ago cut the cord, or cut the satellite dish, I just should say, and now I can stream BBC and ITV and Sky News and everything on the apps. I just don't really need it. So I do think it's going to go. I don't think it's going to be around much longer. Again, it's a little bit like the same thing as what's happening in the US, where cable is dying. Here, satellite television is kind of that equivalent. Kev says, I do hope there's enough low orbit satellites for internet, since not everyone can get internet in rural areas. I remember when I was in Yellowstone Park and cell service was limited. Yeah, I mean, just one of the nearby towns to me, when I go and visit someone, they've got no cell service in their street. There's literally no cell service, and that's literally like 2-3 miles away. But yeah, we do get that a lot. But yeah, I think internet is going to work differently, because we're willing to pay for that, and that's still going to be going. Keenan says, my family doesn't have cable anymore. We have YouTube TV. I think that's a lot of people. That's what a lot of people think. Ricardo says the shows I would bring back with Dollface, A Small Light, and A World, according to Jeff Goldblum. I wouldn't mind. There's a few episodes from Goldblum I didn't catch from that second season. I kind of drifted off it. A Small Light is one of my favorite documentaries or favorite series. I still do not understand why that was removed, because that was a high quality drama. Great documentaries, or great series. I thought it was heartbreaking. Personally, for me, that was a really cool experience when that movie and that series came out. Disney invited me up to London, and I got to interview the executive producers and the directors and stuff. I had all the lights on, and it was so scary for me, but it was a lovely experience. So that for me, that TV series has personal kind of connection with it. Matt says, I'm curious about many reported Disney Plus originals that were silently cancelled. Like, when was the last time we heard about that Zero TV series and the live action Sword in the Stone? A load of them got cancelled. Basically, I would say anything that came out during the Chapek announcements that wasn't made got cancelled. I think that was the big thing, really. So many of them were just dumped. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think there was a lot of projects that were getting thrown around that were low quality. I think also they've realized with the remakes that they needed to slow down, and also, as Lilo and Stitch has shown, you're better off making good ones and putting it out in cinemas. The one only one in Tinkerbell says The Small Light was great. That would be the one I'd be like, yeah, you bring that. See that like that one, Pistol. I mean, I would probably throw Big Shot in there, because I think those 2 seasons were a nice story altogether, and I thought that was a good show. Mighty Ducks kind of feels like it should be there. I think that would work. But yeah, I think for me, like the core TV series that were like in one, that were nicely accomplished, would be better. Tim Kingbird said, I loved all the shows in your poll. I didn't see that many of the films, but I liked to have had a movie back with the girl with the squirrel. Oh yeah, Flora and Ulysses. That was good. Also, Better Late Than Ever. That was I enjoyed that one, but I mean, I can see that movie would not be released now. That movie just would not be released by Disney right now because of the context and the underlying theme throughout that movie, which again, I thought was lovely. I thought it was great. It was in that era where we were getting High School Musical and so on. I thought it was a really touching movie, and it kind of dealt with some of the things, but I just don't think it would come out right now. And as Matt says, A Small Light would be great to bring back because it's a self-contained mini-series based on the real historical events. There was never going to be a season 2. No. And I think that is a shame with that one. Let's just go through some of these other let's just see what we've got here. Keenan says, Avatar The Way of Water is being released in cinemas for 1 week. Is this to hype up action via 100%? 100%. You also asked, there is a Superman follow-up movie coming in 2027. However, it's not a direct sequel. I think it is. I mean, it's going to be a part of the Superman. It's the new DCU. It's a new James Gunn movie with Superman in it. It's a sequel. So we can't chat tonight watching the Fortnite Global Championships. Are you still enjoying Fortnite? I always find with Fortnite, I tend to jump in and out a little bit. I'll play it for a bit, and usually when a season, so like the Star Wars season comes in, I'll play it for a bit, the Marvel season, and then I get a bit bored of it. I'll, do all right for like a week, and then I'll get bored of it and drop out of it. Okay, so Keenan, back to you. Could we see a possible trilogy of the Superman series for the first time since the 80s? Probably. I mean, I think it did really well. I really enjoyed Superman. I thought it was great. I hope so. You also asked, there are 16 franchise films that are coming out in 2027. Do you think this is the most in a long time? Maybe. I mean, I don't know how many we've got this year. There's a lot. It does feel like nearly every movie is a franchise of some kind. I mean, it depends on, like, for me, like, I'm just trying to think of like what movies have we got that aren't franchises. And I mean, I could put like Minecraft is a franchise. Barbie was one of them that came out this year, but Minecraft was a franchise. What I'm trying to think, what have we had that isn't a franchise? There's not a lot. Right, let's just jump into some other questions. Oh, Miles asked, what the website for What's on Disney Plus looks different than usual since it's currently being fixed. Could you explain what events led to the website needing to be fixed? Yeah, so if you're unaware and don't visit what'sondisneyplus.com, for the last couple of weeks, I've been getting more and more errors on the back end, and errors, and it's not working properly, and it's got a bit slow, and it keep getting errors. And I've had a few people like Tim, for example, would message me when the site was down, and it's a little bit embarrassing when it keeps happening. And every time I was putting up a story, the website would crash, and it gets to a certain point where I've been trying to ignore it and just hoping it would go away. It's like, but yeah, this past week it was getting to the point where it's like this. I'm gonna have to deal with this. So I spent hours on the phone with technical support, tried a load of fixes, didn't really work. So at the minute it's on a temporary. I've just put it on a temporary. I've literally just stripped it right back, so it is as simple as it possibly can be, just so it just keeps running. So I have just stripped it back to bare minimum. Because it has been getting, as you said, it's been getting slower and slower. So I'm going to be spending most of tomorrow on calls with second line support. We've gone through first line support. They can't help. And I'm probably going to have to pay for a specialist through the company to actually go through and try and fix whatever the problem is on the server end. It's above my knowledge at this point. I've tried everything I can do. I mean, luckily, I did work. I went to college and uni and studied computers. And I spent 5 years working in tech support. So I'm not afraid of doing tech support, and I've got that mindset of how to try and go through the fix stuff. Yeah. If I were to updates at the website, because there's not really much except for articles. Well, that's kind of the whole point of the website, is just articles. Articles is kind of what the point of the website is. I don't use Azure or AWS. It's just WordPress. But I've had to get a dedicated server many years ago because the site just blew up during the pandemic. So I had to quickly scale it up. and it's come down a little bit since then because it's just kind of naturally with the way Google's been and the way Disney Plus is. But yeah, so I'm going to be on the phone a lot over the next few days trying to fix it. It is going to probably look differently. I have decided that I'm going to take the bull by the horns and give it a little bit of an overlay. And yeah, I'm just going to give it a little bit of an overlay and just kind of probably keep it a bit more streamlined, keep it more simple. So just that it works fast. But yeah, it was getting a little bit sluggish. It was having some problems. And so I'm hoping in the next few days, fingers crossed, I'm going to get it all looking fine and get it. But again, it is probably going to look different anyway, because I'm just going to give it a bit of a facelift anyway. But yeah, so it's going to cost probably, it's going to be costing a few $100s to get all this fixed. So not looking forward to that part of it. Babak says, should Disney live stream more premieres and live events on Disney Plus as well on Hulu? And yeah, I mean, definitely, I think it's an area that Disney should be leaning more in on. And I think making the most of all its platforms, putting it out on ABC and Disney Plus makes a lot of sense. Therefore, you're able to reach, I think you're able to reach more audience that way. But but they do cost a lot. And if they're not bringing enough viewers, that's a problem for them. Babak says, will you change the logo from purple to a bluish color that it is now? The logo will not probably change. Whether or not I take the website teal, I might do that rather than purple. I might need to buy a new t-shirt. Actually, but I have got I did have like 4 or 5 of these made, so it's not like I'm wearing the same one every time. But yeah, I'm thinking about whether or not to kind of do a little bit of a slight color change, since if I'm changing it, I might as well kind of go with it. Keenan says the HBO channels have been changed to different names, like HBO 2 will become HBO Hits. Is HBO Max streaming service the reason why these channels are changing? Maybe. I don't know. I think it's, to be honest, it just feels a little bit like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Their viewership is dropping, and maybe HBO Hits. I mean, it's just going to be just the best bits, really. I don't really think it's going to be much interest. Does it really matter if it's on HBO 2 or HBO Hits? I think at least with HBO Hits, it kind of just says, well, this is all the headline, all the main stuff. Bubba Trolling says, do you think that people are mad at ESPN and Disney because Red Zone are getting ads and there's a big understand of the Disney, ESPN, NFL deal? So apparently it wasn't Disney or ESPN that wanted it. I think it was the NFL. I think we have to look at the simple truth is sports is expensive. And the idea of Red Zone being ad-free was nice. But we're in a new era. And these sports have to pay for themselves. And they're getting more and more expensive. If we aren't willing to pay more for it, they are going to have to supplement the income somewhere else. The financial part of it is, I'm sure, running that TV channel or TV show is more expensive. It's probably easier to put the blame onto Disney, but because at the end of the day, the NFL media still own it. Disney don't own it yet. But I think it's just the fact that they're looking at it going, look, this needs to make more money. I mean, the NFL making enough money, but I think the trouble is it's very hard to add adverts to something that hasn't had adverts. Mars says, with the release of Bluey the movie set in August, could the film's trailers debut alongside other features like Ice Age and Gatto? I would definitely say Gatto because that's a couple of months before it. I mean, I think you could run a little advert for Bluey there for Ice Age. I mean, I wouldn't do it too early. Again, it's a preschool movie. Your audience, I mean, it makes sense to tie it in with other family films to get mum and dad interested, but I don't know. I don't know if Ice Age might be a bit early, but I don't know. I always have this feeling, and I know a lot of you have a slightly different theory to me, that you like to see trailers a lot earlier than I do. I tend to like seeing trailers released within like 6 to 8 weeks of the movie coming out because, in my view, most people just forget about it and it gets a bit lost in it. Keenan says, I heard rumors that there might be a new Avengers movie between Doomsday and the Secret Wars. If true, could this be the first time in franchise history to have 2 sequel series in a year? I don't know where you find all your rumors, because you really do manage to find some rather juicy ones that are like, okay. again, I would always stress, where are these rumors coming from? If it's just some random Twitter account or random Reddit post, do take that into consideration, because there's a lot of Facebook groups and there's a lot of fake journalism. I say journalism. A lot of it is just in fake rage. I mean, I see it all the time, and some really credible like Facebook pages and stuff will just post AI, just gibberish kind of posters of fake movies, because they just want the engagement to make money, because it's that kind of thing of get it out there, make some money off the engagement. If you think it's fake, you're then going to comment and say it's fake, which then gets more engagement. It's just a game. It's just a game to it. Some more pre-done questions. Kayla says, with WWE partnering with the ESPN for PLEs in the US and AEW partnering with HBO Max as their primary pay-per-view provider in the US, do you feel it's interesting times to be a wrestling fan? I definitely think I think this is a very interesting time for WWE and wrestling fans as a whole. I think, we definitely feels like WWE are heavily trying to knock down and kind of chop block AEW, with the counter programming that's going on with the premium live events, just the way that's going on. And AEW does feel like it's lost a lot of steam. Yeah, it's a little bit. It is a little bit disappointing with what I had hoped that AEW was going to bring a lot more. Personally, there's just something about AEW that just doesn't work for me. I don't know what it is. The way it's presented, sometimes it just doesn't. I mean, I do try and catch the clips on YouTube now. They're posting them a bit more. I was like AEW doing Collision like 2 hours up the road from me later this year, and I was just like. I just been to WWE at that Cardiff a couple of 2 weeks ago, and I was like, because Cardiff's not on the next tour, and I was like, do I really want to get? And like, it could be a fun night, but and I just ended up didn't buy my tickets. But yeah, I think, and also there's a very interesting kind of speculation that TKO have been going to get as many deals as possible, because if you look at what they've got now, they've got Disney with ESPN. They've got Netflix. They've got the CW. They've got, I think, Tubi. They've got, the USA Network, Peacock. They're on so many platforms that actually now what's happening is there's not really a lot of scope for AEW to find another platform, because WWE have kind of grabbed so many platforms, and I suspect they've got contracts in place that they are the only one that can be on there. So it kind of leaves them with HBO, and I think the whole thing of doing pay-per-views on HBO Max just seems so old-fashioned, and I don't get how. I mean, I ain't gonna pay $30 for a pay-per-view anymore. That era is long gone. I ain't doing that anymore. Just kicking here, just looking at some of the other live questions. Keenan says, "Are you saying I should check my facts first?" I'm not saying you should check your facts, because I would say in general, and I would say this to every one of you, look at when you're on the internet, you do have to have a very skeptic mindset, because there is a lot of scamming going on. There's a lot of rage bait. There's a lot of clickbait. There's a lot of engagement bait. And that's only got worse since like Facebook and Twitter, etc. started. I would say it got a lot worse once they started to engage in trying to pay creators to do stuff. I see most of it more on Twitter, and especially with for example, wrestling Avengers at the minute. It just feels like any single person on Twitter can just make up some random thing about Doomsday, and then like some big aggravators will just post anything to create more engagement. And it's definitely, there is so much speculation. I actually think, Babak, you are 100% right. So if every rumor I've read about Doomsday turns out to be real, it'll be a 10-hour movie with every character known to man. It has just gone incredibly. And Marvel, there's so much devouring of that information. I think wrestling does tend to work sometimes the same, but it's very easy for wrestlers just to kind of come out and be like, no, this is fake. It's happened like this weekend, like with Wade Barrett. You know, he was able to come out and kind of clarify a story and kind of got it knocked down. Whereas Marvel aren't really, they can't keep coming out and saying that's fake, that's not true, because then it's going to give away what is true. Kayla says, all I can say is Twitter and TikTok are sites where dumb behavior is rewarded. Yeah, and I would put Facebook into that as well. They do it as well. Matt says AI has made the spread of fake internet rumors even worse, like how you see AI movie posters and even AI trailers. Though they have been doing a big crackdown on AI trailers, because that was something that you started seeing a lot coming in. A lot of it was like clipped together, but AI really made it worse. And, you know, you'd be like, here's a trailer for Avengers Secret Wars. And you're like, they've not even filmed it. And it was just, yeah, AI slop. And, yeah, YouTube and everyone are now having to really aggressively go after it. And I think we're going to see laws having to change quickly, because I think primarily, I think this is going to come from the political parties that are going to have to stop just bad. I mean, some of them prefer fake news more than real news, but I think you are going to see a big shift. And I think as well, the other problem with all these rumors, especially with like Avengers and so on, is that so much of it is speculation and fake stuff that I think is ultimately going to hurt your view of what's going to happen. And then sometimes when the stuff does come out, you might get spoiled. So yeah, it is an absolute mess. Absolute mess. And I would say this to everyone. It's like, I know, like, definitely, like, I've got some family members where sometimes they'll send me, I'm like, it's fake, it's rubbish. What? And they're like, oh, it's like, oh, have you heard the news of this? And it's like, you know, and some of it is like, no, this is crazy. But because they see it on the internet, it must be true. But it's definitely got worse. I'm just going to go down the list, see if I've got any questions here that I've missed. Dana says, I don't agree that the US has to pay $30 to watch the WWE PLEs. Thoughts? Well, I mean, ultimately, you're not just getting the PLEs. You are getting you're getting access to all the other ESPN content. So it's not like that's all you're getting. It's not like a premium. That's all you spend $30 and you get that. You know, that I think, you know, you are getting more. It depends if you're interested in other sports. I mean, I'm just surprised they went with ESPN. I thought they were going to go to Netflix, because I thought that was a done deal when they were like, oh, Netflix is going to get everything, because that's what we've got here in the UK. But we don't get the main events. Yeah, I think there's a lot of that thing of people are getting a bit cheesed off with having to have so many different platforms to watch everything. And I think, you know, this whole idea of going, I mean, ultimately, if you go back to cable right now, I mean, if you get the cable bundle, you're going to get what? ESPN, Disney Plus, Hulu, Peacock, Paramount, HBO. You're probably better off having this cable bundle, and then you get all the streaming apps. I mean, it might work out as a cheaper bundle than kind of buying them separately. But yeah, I mean, I think for like, it's hard for me because obviously I get access to Netflix, has all of the WWE bar, like, and then the other stuff they put on YouTube. But you know, if it was on like different platforms, there would be a thing of like, what am I actually going to subscribe to? And yeah, it is going to be weird how that works. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying there. Let's see what we've got. Billy says, what should Disney do in terms of promotion for the upcoming Disney original films like Hoppers and Hex, so people will find them appealing and therefore go to watch them? The problem is, advertising right now is very different. It doesn't work the same way that it used to. I think putting out a trailer is good. Putting it in front of the movies, you know, makes sense. Putting the posters in the movie trailers, that is going to appeal to, you know, you put the big boards and the posters in the cinemas, that's going to get people's attention. But I think we have become more and more acute to walking along and not looking at posters and adverts the same way that we used to. I think we've all become ad blind. And I think that's generally what the biggest problem is. And trying to get attention, so they've got to spend money on YouTube ads and Facebook ads, but more and more people have not got ad blockers and stuff in place. Traditional media doesn't work in the same way. Yeah, and I think there is that kind of thing. Disney is also very, very, they will hold back on making merchandise for new franchises. They hold back and make sure that it works because they've got burnt in the past spending millions of dollars on creating toys and merchandise for things that flopped. And then that's always for me a little bit along the lines of when you don't see any merchandise to go alongside a movie release, that's when I know they've not got the faith in it. Bobatronic says, what did go wrong with the failure of Warner Brothers Discovery? I think just a massive amount of debt when it got burnt out and just mismanagement. And the current owner, the current owners are just looking to trim, and then they're now looking to sell. They've split the company up and going to sell it off. Miles says they could collaborate with Epic Games for 10% in. They could have clips for hoppers in place. I mean, yeah, I definitely think, putting a hopper character in Fortnite, having, there is reaching audience through there. But again, advertising is a weird thing. I mean, for me, it's like hoppers. If with Fortnite, what would actually be more insight? I think rather than charging for a skin, give the skin away. That's the promotion. Or you do a really big bundle of like Fantastic Four is coming out. Here's a bundle of all 4 characters for like $5-10 and actually use it as a promotion rather than a way of making more money. Let's see what we've got here. Keenan says, what are your favorite country artists? Mine are country, Morgan Wallen, the Costellos, and Keith Anderson. I don't know about the Costellos and Keith Anderson. I might know their songs because obviously when I'm listening to country, smooth country, it might be on it. Morgan Wallen, I have listened to his albums a lot. Post Malone's country album, I really enjoyed that one. Luke Combs, was it Lainey Wilson? Those are some of the ones. At the minute, I'm very much just listening to country radio in the car because we do have 2 country stations in the UK, so I do listen to them a lot. So it's just whatever's on the radio. So I listen to more of that. Let's see what we've got. Babak says, what do you think will happen with Paramount after all the changes they're making? We're going to see them slim down. We're going to see them focus. We're going to see them selling stuff that they don't need anymore. We're going to see a much streamlined Paramount. But I think the guys that are owning it are going to spend a lot of money to try and make a lot of noise to try and get some big items involved, like the UFC, South Park, etc. They're going to try and go after some big stuff to try and become. I think they know that they've either got to spend big to compete with Netflix and be streamed down, or they're going to have to go the opposite way of giving in on streaming and just going third party. I don't think the new owner's too full of gusto. He's got too much money. Big dad that can just keep going, kind of like a Tony Khan, really. They can just keep buying all the new toys that he wants until eventually daddy turns around and goes, no, you're not spending any more money. I think that's the problem for me with Paramount. Knoxway says, I hope the Disney Plus original shows will remove. Hope they can be re-released on iTunes where people can purchase it. I definitely think so. I think the movies, again, as you said, are removed, then they got re-released. The movies were much an easier sell for people to do. Billy C says, I suspect Sister Act 3 is cancelled despite Wooly Gutberg keep insisting they're still working on it. I mean, come on, this movie was announced 5 years ago. 5 years ago, and it still hasn't happened. And I think she uses every interview and every view to try and like keep this project going to show there's interest in it. But this, to me, it just feels like that is again a movie of like, do we really need it? And also, is nostalgia there for it? Because it feels, I mean, Sister Act was what, like early 1990s. I just don't know if like today's like adults are they interested in Sister Act? Because it kind of feels like, I mean, that was a movie that came out when I was a teenager, and the new ones that are coming out like Freakier Friday and stuff. This is aimed at a generation behind me. I just don't know if a Sister Act 3 is necessary. I don't think she's going to have the support. I think it very alienated, obviously, in the United States, which is the core market that this movie is going to appeal to. And ultimately, and I kind of have to think, like, you know, the target audience maybe of Sister Act 3 is probably not going to be interested in this movie right now because of everything that's been going on over the last few years. Keenan says, I wonder if Disney Plus will be able to do more live streams because Netflix is able to do at least once a week due to its contract with WWE. Yeah, we'll also get boxing, we get SmackDown, and we get lots here. Babak says also Maggie Smith has passed and she was, but yeah, I mean, I think that she did kind of put a little bit of blame on that, as kind of slowed things down a little bit. But again, I mean, I'm not being funny, but if you're writing a story about, you know, I mean, how old was she? What was it Maggie Smith age? I mean, she was 89 years old. I mean, I would say to any person writing a movie or a TV series with an actor that is in, you know, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, you know, you might need to put into consideration that they might not be in it for very long. Yeah, I think you say that. It's like, because I was watching the Thursday Murder Club the other day, and it's like, you know, yeah, they can keep churning these out, but ultimately, I mean, it might be easier for them to write them out, but you know, there is a problem for that. Thank you so much, Derek, for your super chat. I really appreciate that. I especially appreciate that this week because definitely is going to need it. Once Warner Brothers Discovery splits into two companies, you think it'll help them compete with Disney and Universal? No, I don't think so. I think they are going to sell and strip that company for parts. I think that the cable companies are going to get leased off to whoever will. I think you're going to have companies that are a bit like the newspapers, where they're just going to buy up all these channels, put as many ads on them as they possibly can off the older audience, and just keep and run them into the ground with less and less original programming, more licensed content, and just basically just grab as much money on the way out as they can. And I think they're looking to sell. Whether or not they can do a merger, I don't know. Whether or not they could merge with Fox or Paramount or Comcast, but I think they are ripe for. I don't think Disney will. I've got no question. Disney is not in a position where it can buy Warner Brothers. They don't need it necessarily. But yeah, I don't see that happening. But yeah, again, thank you so much. 100% really appreciate your support, Derek. Babak says, I like that Disney Plus is using Disney Plus more to promote his movie, but they need to use it more of a coming soon set. I think it's slightly different. I don't think they're... Mara says, is the website currently powered by WordPress while it's being fixed? It always was WordPress. It always was. But yeah, it's definitely... like I said, I just streamlined it down a little bit so it can still work and you can still read it doesn't look good. I don't like the look of it. I'm kind of embarrassed with how bad it looks at the minute. But it was a case of, unfortunately, all the tech support people, the weekend, they were like, well, we can deal with it on Monday. Like, yeah, but it's Friday afternoon. So I kind of had to make that decision of going, right, I either let it just keep crashing up and down all weekend, or try and streamline it. So again, I'm going to be on them tomorrow morning at just after 9 o'clock. I'm going to be on the buzzer for them to try and get someone in so I can get it fixed. So I'm hoping by this time next week, we hopefully will get it. Otherwise, it's going to be a long, long week for me. I barely slept. The other night, it was a nightmare. I was working on it till like nearly midnight, and I'm like, right, I have to go to bed. Woke up at like 5 in the morning, just couldn't, and I was lying there in bed and going, right, I might as well get up. I'm not doing. So I was knackered, absolutely knackered. Let's see. I'm just going to go up here. Miles says, do you think that John Powell, the composer of Hans Zimmer, will score Pixar's 30th feature film? Hopefully. I mean, he's really good at it. Kelly said, Red Zone heavily relied on revenue from cable and satellite. Now that means more people are moving to streaming. NFL has to make revenue from other means, and that means 30-second ads. Yeah, unfortunately, that's just kind of been it. Okay, so Netflix should have had a contract with WWE to have the PLEs. I mean, I thought when they made the deal that it was very much like whenever any new contract came up, Netflix was maybe going to have first deal. Maybe they just didn't want to pay as much, or ESPN wanted it more. TKO wanted to be in the Disney ecosystem. Yeah, definitely. Bobatron says, do you think Disney is a more safer company than to like than Warner Brothers? And I think ultimately you should be able to like whatever you like. You know, if you like a movie that comes out from Warner Brothers, like it. You don't have to have. I mean, Disney's kind of a weird one. Of you can like different things from Disney. You don't have to like everything. And I think people kind of got a little bit like, oh, I like Disney. There's a lot. Did I miss a thing? I'm just going to have a look, see where I am. There's quite a lot of questions here. Oh, here we go, Mark. Sorry. Do you think the teaser trailer for Toy Story 5 could debut with the 30th anniversary for Toy Story? I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little teaser, maybe like a 30-second kind of thing. Maybe that might be something that they might do. But it would make sense to do that, wouldn't it? Let's see what else we've got here. Kayla says AEW did move their event to the afternoon while WrestlePalooza was still on. Yeah, I mean that's very it's very confusing calling me and Caleb because it's almost the same pronunciation. Keenan and Caleb. And I'm not gonna lie. When I'm trying to say stuff, sometimes my words do come out of my mouth before I think, and if I do get them mixed up, I do apologize. I did it then. Especially when you're talking for like an hour or so like this, your words get a little bit mixed up. But yeah, Keenan and Caleb, I get mixed up when I'm reading them because, to be honest, I'm trying to read them too. I'm trying to read and say things out loud at the same time, which I'm not the best at. I will admit that. So yeah, I do apologize, and I will continue to apologize. But again, I'm trying to read and talk at the same time, and that doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's really weird I used to hate reading out loud when I was at school. I absolutely I hated doing it. I don't like doing it. And I realized last year that someone like pointed out to me of like, you might be like borderline dyslexic, and so like reading out loud actually sometimes is quite weird. I'm just going down here. Bobatronic says, do you think Disney will allow ESPN to partner with Netflix for a bundle? Maybe. I mean, maybe they'll do it. I mean, I don't know if Netflix really is in the bundling mode at the minute. So Suna says, when do you think Willow will return? I don't think that's coming anywhere near. I don't think that's ever coming back. I think that's dead. Noxwave says there are a lot of AI trailers on YouTube, but then YouTube finally knew how ridiculous it was, and they removed the load. That was really good. Keenan also says sports are really expensive. Yeah, I mean, it was like last year I bought the NFL Game Pass, and this year I'm like, no, I'm not spending that. I didn't watch it enough to warrant it. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Matt C says, do you remember how back in the 90s Disney would really go out promoting all their animated films, parades and stage shows in the parks, elaborate movie premieres and tons of movie merchandise? Yeah, I mean, I remember being at Walt Disney World when Hercules came out, and there was promotion everywhere. Everywhere there was a parade, and it was massive. And I also remember, I don't know if it was there or a couple of years later, I remember being at Universal when The Grinch came out. And we'd never heard of The Grinch. So it was, they definitely used, but also you've got to remember, this is the difference, was in the 90s. I mean, I started using the internet 95, 96. I was quite early onto it. But marketing in the internet didn't really exist back then. It was all still very much like television advertising, print magazines, print newspapers. And so they had to, it was, in some ways it was much simpler and there was a lot less noise. So, I mean, they used to do tie-ins because you used to get like Burger King and McDonald's used to get toys and promotions that way. But a lot of that can't be done anymore because of, like, for example, now here in the UK, they can't even promote most of the McDonald's stuff during daytime because it's not deemed as healthy, and therefore I think I heard about the Playmobil thing on the radio, but generally they can't show they didn't show they can't show them now, so it's much difficult. They also, I think, were much more. They used to use merchandise because it was also harder for them because they didn't know whether or not something was going to be a hit or not until afterwards. Whereas now they can kind of judge stuff because of social media. They get that instant reaction, they get that feedback, they get that data, and therefore it gives them a little bit more. If a YouTube video gets a lot more likes and so on, they can kind of go from there and see what the interest is. And I do wonder if sometimes that's why they do release some of the teaser trailers a little bit earlier, because then they can kind of gauge on how quickly they have to fire up the factories for merchandise. That might be a thing. But yeah, the 90s were much more simpler. And, they did have to. And I think sometimes you get people that are reminiscent about that was how they used to advertise it, and why don't they do that anymore? It's because that audience is all over the place. There's so much more competition. There's so much more, and I would say competition for time. I mean, you think of how much time YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and everything takes from you now. And video games always used to take my time, but how much time you spend just consuming content from what you wouldn't necessarily would have existed 20 years ago. And all of that used to be on television. When I was, it's like when you talk about cinemas and people going back to the heyday of like how good it was, and I'm like, but like when I was a kid, we used to be queued up around the block to go watch like Jurassic Park or Ace Ventura. It was literally queued around the block to go to the cinema, because if you wanted to see it, that was the only place you could see it for probably a year. So it forced you to go. I mean, and the further you go back, the more that was in. I mean, I don't think people could understand of like the concept of everything on demand and everything being at your fingertips. Just that didn't exist. Karen says, Matt C, I do remember seeing merch tie-ins on Warner Brothers or Kids WB. I remember when Disney Kids magazine had a section dedicated to Pokemon. It was an interesting time. Yeah, again, they had to use what was available. Keenan says, I think it's disappointing if Sister Act 3 is cancelled. They should have just rebooted the film because I'm Catholic. I mean, I think there's definitely, we've seen it with Angel Studios. There is a big audience that are interested in faith-based films. I don't know necessarily if Sister Act falls into that, because, I don't know. But, yeah, I think there's a lot of money to be made, and I don't think that she really has, let's say, appeal to that audience that probably is the one that are most likely going to go watch it right now. Keenan says, I bet Max will not have any Discovery content anymore. Yeah, I think they're removing a lot of that. Matt C says, if anyone buys Warner Brothers, it'll be Comcast. They already have a bunch of their IPs in Universal Parks, so the synergy is already there. That would make a lot of sense. Babak says, what do you think of the companion podcast Disney announced? Were they at a podcast section or collection? So on that note, we did have a question from Matt on the same thing. I just realized I've not done any of these questions for a while. So there was one on that one. Babak, you asked a similar question. And Khaled, you asked, what are your thoughts on the video podcast? So let's do all of that in one go. So I think it makes sense for them to do it. Again, from my view, I look at this more as a promotional part. It's cheap TV. Just chuck them in front of, on the set, bring them in, do an interview, bing, bada, boom, nice, quick, easy content, cheap to make. I say it's cheap to make. There is no doubt about it that Disney are going to make these podcasts, and they're going to probably need like 25 people to make it. It's going to cost them loads of money. Whereas I can make a podcast for like, I don't know, 10p. So I think it's they're just trying to find new ways of marketing. This is why it's coming from the marketing team rather than from the content team. It's just people are more into podcasts now, and it just makes sense to it. And the old way of doing behind the scenes interviews and all the rest of it doesn't make a lot of noise. Now I just know from my own personal experience, and that's why I don't do a lot of it anymore. I don't chase it. I don't ask about doing them. Sometimes they get asked me, and I'll be like, if I can do it, I'll try and do it. But interviews, etc., with casts and so on, no one's interested. No one is interested in them. You look on any channel, unless there's something spicy that comes out and it gets clipped out and then gets shown all over social media. But these interviews, no one wants to hear, when they sit there for 3 days answering the same questions from all the different interviewers and YouTube channels and influencers and websites. People aren't interested because there's too many of them. And I don't think it works anymore. So again, they're just trying to find a new audience with these companions. Baba Trolling says, do you think that Zootopia 2 will make $1 billion? I hope so. I wouldn't say it's a guarantee. I think the big problem is going to be is, how will it play in China, or will it play in China? Miles says, do you think the Hulu's recent revival of King of the Hill will get renewed for a few more seasons? Yes. I think it's been a big hit. Tim says, how often does Disney live stream events for the D23 Gold members on the D23 Go Theatre? I think they've only done it a couple of times. I think they do one a month. Again, this is that thing of just them. They waste so much money creating all these different sites and things. They're just like, just chuck the thing on YouTube or Disney Plus. Stop trying to, why make people go? It's like, I don't know. It just feels so unnecessary. Matt says, should there be a Disney Plus original collection? I think you kind of got that when you click on the originals, you get that whole thing. That's it, isn't it? Ricardo says, it was revealed last year that Fox was in mind buying Warner Brothers, but it never went to fruition because of issues of having 2 news channels. Do you think that Fox will buy another company? I don't know. I don't know what Fox is doing. They seem to be all over the place. It's like, what do they want to do? Do they want to grow, or do they want to, or do they just, I don't know. It just feels very weird with them. They're still very much encamped in the cable world. And I think the Fox News channel is just keeping them afloat. My thing with the Fox channel now, especially with the Fox News, is what's it going to be like in 4 years or 10 years? Because let's just say that Fox has done very nicely out of the last decade because of the president. There's no point in sugarcoating it. They have really benefited from, he is in some way very entertaining. He creates entertainment moments and he brings people in on the news. And I do wonder what's going to happen at the end of this era. Where is it all going to go? What's going to be happening? Is it just going to be a decline after that? Tim says, why aren't we starting to see trailers and dates for Christmas movies and shows for Disney Plus? Is it too early? I would say yes. When they dropped that trailer on Friday, I was like, really? The kids have, here in the UK, they literally went back to school on Thursday. Some of them don't go back till tomorrow. I was in the garden centre 2 weeks ago and they had all the Christmas decorations up. And it's like, I'm standing here in shorts, I've still got my summer holiday to have in a few weeks' time. And all the Halloween, and I'm still in summer mode. It's starting to change. It's starting to get the fall, the autumn. It's getting colder. It's getting darker in the mornings. But yeah, I'm not ready for Christmas yet. I'm still a way off. And that trailer, I was like, it feels early. I personally would have waited until we were in October. I don't get it seems such a rush to get it out there. And I think there is a pushback on, we're not really in the mode for Christmas right now. Bubba Trolling says, should Disney have Monday Night Football in ad-free and Disney Plus subscription to better compete with Paramount Plus and Peacock? Yes. I personally, and this is I think that Disney were too scared to do it. But I think ESPN should have been rolled into Disney Plus. They should have sucked it up for a few years and lost the money, but allowed ESPN to let Disney Plus become the big boy. Let it become the full streaming service to compete with the other ones. This whole idea of adding all that sport in for $30 a month, to me, just feels like the question is there enough value there for people to start putting this price on it? Or are they going to change their mind in a few years' time and just put the price of Disney Plus up to cover the sports? I don't know. I just feel like they're just trying to keep cable business going as long as they can. Okay, so that's all the pre-done questions. I'm just going to make sure I didn't miss any before I go back. I think that's all of them. Okay, so I'm just going to go back into the live chats, see what we've got here. It's very confusing calling it because it is almost the same pronunciation. I think just the way up my mind goes, it's like Keenan and Keel. I can't even say that there. Bubba says sometimes you get me and Bubba trolling me. I do try with Bubba, and the only way I can, this is again what I've been trying to do, is Bubba trolling makes me I need to probably put, the trouble is on the questions on the tab when I bring up the question, not so much on this one, but when I bring up this screen here, I only get like 100, I only get 200 characters. So the longer your name is, the less of the question I can put in. So if it's over like, so basically by the time I take your name out, I get about was it like 190 characters? So I'm gonna try and, like, this is why I do say when I ask you that I might need to cut them down. So that's kind of a problem. Which service would you like to see Disney Plus bundle within the UK? I mean, I just don't know with these bundles. The trouble is getting a streaming service that I don't want with it. That's the problem. I mean, I would love, and this is probably where I think maybe some of us would like, is how about I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to end up with, you can get Netflix, Disney Plus, Peacock, Paramount, HBO, and Amazon, all with ads for like $50. And then I think that's going to happen. I think they're going to get to a point where there's going to be like a super bundle. Keenan says, I wasn't born until 1999, so I don't know what it was like, what the 90s were like. Man, I feel old. I was 19. So this is that difference of, I mean, I was a teenager when the internet was coming in, and it's hard to express to you. When I was 16, so there was 3-4 years before you were even born, back in my day. So when I first got the internet, I used to have to pay £1 for an hour on the internet, £1 an hour to go on the internet. And so I used to have an R2D2 tin. So I used to come home from college, and I used to put £2 in my pot, so I could have 2 hours on the internet. And if someone rang my mum or dad on the main phone line, the internet would drop out. Or if they needed to phone anyone, you'd have to get off the internet. And it would take 20 minutes to download a song, kind of thing. It was slow. And I remember, like, my dad, we got our first internet bill, and it was like £400 for the bill. My dad went through the roof. My dad was like, holy crap, how much internet have you done? And the reason I did the coin meter was because my cousin had done the same thing, and he got a £600 bill and didn't have any money. And my auntie got the turn the internet off. So I remember coming down the first month, brought down my tin and poured out like all these pound coins across the table, and with a load of notes that I'd saved with my part-time job. Basically, my part-time job was paying for my internet. And it was like, oh, so there you go, it's all paid for. And every month. And so when they started bringing out unlimited packages for like £20-30 a month, it was saved me a fortune. But yeah, the internet was very different than it is now. Saying that, it's just like booking a Wi-Fi package on a cruise line takes me back to how it used to be. Matt says, I think the recent example was a sort of replicated the 90s era film was Wicked, merch everywhere, park appearances, and full on. Yeah, they definitely went old school for that one. Again, I think reaching for an older one. Knoxway says, are you looking forward to watching Wicked Part 2? Yes. Literally, my mum and dad they got some cinema tickets with their bank. So they gave them to us. And I've literally put them aside. When Wicked 2 comes out, we're going to go to the city. We're going to get the big leather chairs with the popcorn. We're having a day out to go. My wife loved it. I have seen Wicked at like London on the West End a few times. So I am looking forward to seeing the film. Miles says, do you think the post-credit scene for Lightyear was about as effective as the post-credit scene for Morbius, Battleship, and The Last Airbender? What was the post-credit scene for Lightyear? I don't even remember that. Matt says you used to have to wait a year for animated films to come out on VHS. Yeah, my uncle used to have a video shop in the 80s. And what you didn't realize was back then, when a new movie came out, each copy of a new movie would cost about 80, 90, 100 pound in order for them to. So they had to rent it out like 50 times before they started to make their money back. And they would have exclusive access for like a year before it would come out to buy. And I always find this weird thing with like videos and CDs and video games, the price of them. I mean, I know everyone moans about the price of like £80 video games and £60 video games. It's like, I remember buying like Chippendale Rescue Rangers on the Nintendo Entertainment System for, I think it was 55 quid. I think Street Fighter 2 on the Nintendo, Super Nintendo was like 80 quid. And this was in the 90s. So I do find, I think, again, I know prices keep raising and they do keep going up, but some things haven't really gone up that much. Since the films were setting up sequels, but a lot of fans aren't liking it. Yeah, they definitely didn't like them. Miles says, explain how you would think Warner Brothers will be stripped down for parts after the Warner Brothers split is completed. So they're just gonna sell off all the cable channels. Discovery is going to be split off. Someone's going to pick it up. I don't know if Discovery Plus will survive. I think the only way it's surviving is because it's just lapped into all the cable companies. Yeah, I think they're just going to sell off parts of the. I think someone is going to just pick, a bit like with Skydance. Someone's going to come in and think they can do something better and just pick out the best bits. Or alternatively, someone like Comcast or someone like that might be like, look, we need to power up to go after Netflix. Maybe that's how they do it. Kelly says, I believe WWE started the trend of video podcasts becoming a regular thing. I know last year Cody Rhodes did a pilot with Bailey. Yeah, I mean, they're really leaning in all of this, aren't they? Because it's just money to be made. But I also think the podcasts are doing better than like having like raw previews and all the rest of it. Miles says, do you think Pixar's Gato could be the first computer animated film shot entirely using virtual IMAX theaters? Should Pixar choose to use those cameras, which were developed for Lightyear? I mean, they're going to make it look as beautiful as they possibly can. They always do. Fox selling all their movies and TV series and then starting a streaming service was not on my bingo card. Yeah, I mean, they really streamed down and then they kind of realized, I think they went too small and then they kind of went up with it. I think the only reason Fox One exists is because Fubo Sports failed. Bubba Trolling says, I just giving up on Warner Brothers and Discovery because I don't enjoy it anymore. It's making me feel bad and angry because it's just not worth it for me anymore. Let's have a look. Okay, Keenan, for your so Derek, you are at number 1. You are the number 1 top fan. Then it's Miles and Keenan. You are in 2nd place. Caleb, you're at 4th. Bubba Trolling, you're at 5th place. So there we go. That's hopefully there we go. So I think the thing is with Warner Brothers is you're just going to kind of look at what you want. I mean, I don't have Now TV because for me, there's a few shows on Max which are kind of fun. I do want to watch Peacemaker, but I'll get there eventually. Ricardo says, right now Fox is just trying to get the Fox Sports back on Net Mexico. Just recently they revived the Fox channel on Tubi. Now they're only showing shows about soccer. I think they're all trying to just kind of get stuff going. Kelly says, apologies if I didn't have the best questions this week, but in all fairness, it's been very quiet week for entertainment news. It was, because I think you guys had Labor weekend last week, so they kind of stayed out of the way of that. Ricardo, they also have Fox Sports on Tubi. In the meantime, they can reclaim the channel name from the Lumen Group. I mean, I'm surprised that they didn't do something with Tubi and Fox One. I'm surprised that didn't happen then. The only one Tinkerbell says, I was in my 30s in the 90s. Okay, that's making me feel better. I mean, I was technically no, I was only in my teens, right? Because 1999, I was still only 19. Keenan says Max, Star, Disney Plus, and ESPN would make sense for the bundle because of the US bundle. Yeah, I don't know. I think Star or Stars is not long for the world. I don't really get what that platform is for. Mara says, do you think Gato could get a special engagement at the El Capitan Theatre in Los Angeles and the Radio City Music Hall in New York a week before its wide cinema release? Maybe. It makes sense to do some previews. Keen says, did you have Laserdisc back in the day? I knew it was more expensive than oh, Laserdisc was so cool. So expensive. I used to go into MVC and HMV every day while I was at college, and I'd flick through all the discs and stuff. But DVD was just starting to come out at then. I literally used to spend all my money when I was like 13 to 16. I used to just spend it all at HMV and Blockbuster buying videos. I used to have hundreds of VHS. And I remember with Laserdiscs, they were so cool, but they were so expensive. You were looking at I think at the time, they were like 3 times the price of a VHS. And my cousin got one, and I used to watch on there, and it was great. But there wasn't a lot. They didn't release a lot because mainstream audience just didn't really get into them. But I used to love watching stuff on there. But again, the thing is, what is hard to kind of get across to you all now is, back in my day, when I was a teenager in my room, my television was a 14. I think it was actually only a 12-inch television. So it was 12 inches across, but it was about that wide. So it was massive. And in the living room, I think we only had a 20-inch television in the living room. So it was lower resolution because that was a difference of going to the cinema on the big screen. That is the big difference of why now so many of us don't need to go to the cinema, because our televisions are so much bigger. I remember when I got my first job, I bought myself a 28-inch widescreen television. It was like 600 quid. It was massive. I mean, it was as wide as it was big. And I mean, it felt amazing at like 19 to have a 28-inch television. And I remember when I brought my first flat, or when I rented my first flat, and I went out and bought a 36-inch television. I mean, now I've got like, what, a 65-inch television? It's just, it's crazy. Knox says the post-credit scene was Lightyear was Erg Alive. Oh, was that? Yeah, I remember that now. Did that one. It played after the Disney. Maybe I must have missed that one. Right. Okay. So I think I've reached the end of the questions, and I have gone 20 minutes over. Okay. So next week I'll be back same time, same place, same channel, and I will be back the week afterwards. I will be taking a week off. I think the last Sunday of September, I won't be doing a live stream. So I'm going to take a week off and I'm going to go away. Again, keep a lookout on what's on Disney Plus. The website is, as I said, it's going through a little bit of a temporary look. I am going to be getting some people to try and fix it, so it's all looking good. So, Miles, I missed a few questions. Let's see, what did I miss? So Suna, what do you think will happen with the ESPN app? Do you think they will add it after it's merged? Now, the ESPN app's going to remain separate. They will remain separate because that's like a separate own. You can access it through Disney Plus, but ESPN, they kind of want that to be its own separate app because of all the betting and the fantasy. That's all going to be, it's all incorporated into it. So it goes after a different audience than Disney Plus. So the ESPN app isn't going to be going anywhere. I'm just seeing if I missed any other ones. Did I miss any others? I'm trying to have a look. Sorry, I'm trying to just make sure I didn't miss anyone. Oh, here we go. Miles said, could we see the 4K releases for Brockheimer films such as Crimson Tide, The Rock, Con Air, Pearl Harbor, Veronica Gurdon, and several others? I think they do seem to be releasing a lot of them. I'm not going to lie. If they re-release The Rock and Con Air, I am so going to rewatch that one. Pearl Harbor? No, I probably wouldn't bother with them, but the Con Air, I'll watch that with wouldn't do it. I'd love that movie. Matt says, we never would have predicted back in the 90s that we would no longer have Disney stores at local malls. Considering how huge Disney still is, it's still crazy to realize. Yeah, I mean, we used to have a Disney store in Plymouth, a Disney store in Bath, a Disney store in Bristol. We had 2 in Bristol. They've all gone. Saying that stores as a whole are just closing off, it does sometimes frustrate me a little bit. I see a lot of it on like social media on the local our local things of, people going, the shops are all dying in the towns, and we need to bring them back. It's like they're never coming back, folks. The internet and supermarkets and out of town shopping means we're never going to get that back. But nevertheless, Kayla says, I also remember when VCD was a thing back in 1999, but it wasn't as effective as DVDs, whereas since DVD had better quality. I do remember buying a few video CDs. I think I remember buying King Kong. I was on a layover in Kuala Lumpur, and I picked a couple up while I was in the stores because I was like, I don't really know quite what they are. Yeah, I do. I remember video. They weren't that big. Okay, so as I said, thank you very much. I will be back next week. Keep a lookout for videos throughout the week. As I said, keep a lookout on what's on Disney Plus. I am trying to fix the website, and hopefully that will be done, and we'll be back to normal. But it will probably have a little bit of a lick of paint change this week. On that note, guys, thank you so much for your continued support. Big thank you to Derek for your super chat. Big thank you to Wesley for becoming a YouTube channel member. Really appreciate your support. And on that note, guys, thank you very much. I shall see you guys soon. Laters. Tally ho. Toodaloo.